Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Buzzard's Nest podcast. My name's Buzz, and today with me I have a guest using Zencaster, Jason from Florida. Jason, you want to tell them a little about yourself?
Hey, how y'all doing? I'm an Army veteran. I've been in the medical field since the early 90s. I also do a little tinkering around with some major companies with their medical IT work, and I'm here with lots of opinions.
And today we're kicking off. This is going to be the second one of my grumpy old man, but this time it's going to be grumpy old men. And we're discussing today. We're going to start off with North Korea. That seems like the biggest subject out there right now. I don't know how much you got to look up, Jason, but I did because I took it from a Japan's angle. Because Japan's the one that had one missile go directly over top of their land, and in actuality, there was three missiles fired. I don't know if you did that or not.
Yeah. There's been quite a number of missiles. This isn't the first time historically that North Korea's fired over top of Japan. This is the first one they're crediting to a ballistic missile. But their last two launches, 2010, 2008, were quote unquote supposed to be space type missiles, but we kind of know the truth about that.
Yeah, that's definite. Well, they were saying the other two actually malfunctioned on the way over the ocean, and the third one made it over. But do you realize that Japan said we were on the edge of war because if that third missile would have broken up and hit their area, they would have went and attacked?
Well, yeah, they would have wanted to attack. I mean, stemming back from World War II. They have they have a military presence, but they don't have much. They're not permitted to. I mean, well, when we signed the peace treaty with them, we said that hey, we'd rebuild you and we'll protect you, and you're only allowed to have X, Y, and Z. So, what Japan's basically trying to say is that they would have reached out to us, and we would have had to in turn attack them. So,
Yeah, 'cause I looked up on army.com or .org, I should say, and it's statistics from North Korea to Japan because, like you were saying, Japanese were limited on their military because of that. Right now, the North Korea population is 24 million, roughly. Japan's 126 million, verging on 127. But North Korea's military budget is estimated at 1.5 billion. Japan is 46 billion. But North Korea has more equipment and stuff than Japan ever had. It's kind of ridiculous when you look at these numbers.
yeah, I mean, the whole thing with North Korea, and a lot of people that haven't spent time in South Korea, which I have. I spent 366 days stationed there. Part of that, which was stationed on a DMZ. Um, this whole rhetoric between our president and their I'm not going to call him, I don't know, we'll call him a dictator. Is a lot of talk and a lot of conversation, and this has been going on for many years with presidents in the past. It's just with the advention of the internet and social media and things like that this is all coming to light. I mean, this is nothing new. The fact of the matter is we could eliminate North Korea in a heartbeat. We have the resources, we have the backing of the UN, and so on and so forth. That's not open for discussion. The problem is the amount of missiles and artillery pieces that are pointed towards Seoul. That's the inherent problem. I mean, Seoul could not be in a worse spot for a capital of a country than it is. I mean, it's but 20 miles from the DMZ. it allows it to take direct strikes from conventional weapons. They don't need electricity. They don't need anything but people sitting there tugging on strings to activate them. And so the problem with us attacking North Korea and limiting their nuclear capabilities, we would have a vast area of conventional weapons that we would have to take out simultaneously, and they're gonna see us coming. So what happens is Seoul with their millions of residents, and quite frankly, there's thousands of expatriates that live in Seoul and other cities there as well.
Yeah.
So you have American citizens, and you have citizens from all over the world that reside there. So turning around and just saying, okay, well, let's jump the gun, and a missile fell apart and fell on my country. I get Japan's natural reaction to that, but we have to take into account everything that's they're going to be able to do within those minutes of us striking them that's going to cause massive devastation.
Yeah, because they're saying these 3 missiles were actually launched from North Korea's airport on a new mobile system. So who knows what else they have up their sleeves right now.
Yeah.
And you had mentioned artillery. Last estimates, they have 13,000 pieces of artillery because they knew that was their greatest weapon to fight Seoul. That's not counting the ammo needed for them, but 13,000 pieces of artillery. So Seoul is in a danger zone, big time.
Yeah, and let's think about all of our military bases. The majority, as far as the Army goes, the majority of them are equal to Seoul or closer. So, that puts our troops in harm's way as well. Now, all of us that served over there were basically told, you're here as a kind of bit of a roadblock. Just to put it nicely, but the fact of the matter is, they have army, a million plus army now that's going to come across towards you, and one of the interesting things is that if you spend any time, around the DMZ or even areas close to it, you'll follow. As you're driving around, you'll see these big monuments and statues and big type things covering, spanning over the roads. And if anything were to happen, all of these are rigged for explosions. All the bridges, everything is rigged. And so the second that anything happens, it's a foregone conclusion that all of these things are going to be blown up to slow their onslaught onto the south. And the civilians and the military that are within those areas are just as stuck. So I of all people, I wish we would just do a tactical nuke and shut their nuclear power plant down and hopefully know where he's at. And I refuse to speak his name because he's an inbred, sociopath.
I don't even say it right anyhow, so it comes out something stupid. So it's fitting for him.
Kim Jong Un or whatever the hell his name is, but we won't talk about that. But yeah, this whole thing is a mess. China's responsible. I've read news articles and accounts that the reason why his half brother and his uncle were killed is because China was backing an attempted coup of him. And I don't know whether that's true or false, but China continues to trade with them.
I heard wasn't Iran or Iraq just busted, or is it Syria? Dang it! I should have looked up the article. So North Korea traded parts for chemical warfare. I want to say it was Syria.
Yep. Yeah, it was Syria
for nuclear parts for these missiles.
Yep.
So why aren't they being held responsible too?
Yeah. Oh, well, no, absolutely. And I think Syria is another beast. Just to keep it in line with North Korea at this moment. If you want to hold someone responsible, you have to go back to the Clinton administration. They're the ones that relaxed the rules. They're the ones that gave them their nuclear power plant. That administration, it gave them this technology.
Were you in South Korea during the Clinton? I would say regime, the Clinton election times, or during his reign.
Regime.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was in South Korea from 91 to 92.
Okay. Let's see. I reached there 92 to 90. No, 92 to 94 middle. The budget wasn't signed. Do you remember that? He
Yep.
didn't sign the budget.
Yeah, absolutely.
That was. It wasn't being over Korea. It wasn't what we dealt with in Korea that sucked. It was when he didn't sign that fucking budget. Because when PT was over, you got a shower, all electricity shut off on base because we couldn't afford the bill.
Right.
Every other day was an MRE because no fresh food could be shipped in. I was with the mechanized infantry, so we were in Bradleys. If one Bradley went down within the company, it became scrap to make sure all the other ones were up and running because we had to be battle ready because no parts were coming in.
But the sad part about that is, even though we have a budget now, many other branches of the military are to this day they're experiencing those same problems. The Air Force, most famously with the A-10 Warthogs. Instead of them doing their maintenance and having a budget to take care of the airframes, they're basically saying, okay, well, we're going to pull this A-10 off the line. It's having issues to rebuild 4 others. So I mean that still happens, even without a budget crisis. So there's such an issue, and like I said, I didn't blame Clinton. I'm blaming the administration. So I'm blaming a lot of people for giving them the tools necessary to be where we're at today. So it takes me back. When Israel, was it Iran? Was it Iran or was it Iraq? It was Iraq that was trying to build the nuclear power plant, and Israel went in there and just blew it up.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the kind of leadership that we need, and whether you like him or not, this current president is trying to do that.
He is.
I'm being very neutral when I'm in my discussions, especially on an open platform like this. I'm not being Republican, I'm not being Democrat, I'm not being anything. There's a lot of things I know we can look at in hindsight and say, oh well, if we wouldn't have done this, hey, Clinton could have, what was it? The CIA had Bin Laden in their crosshairs during the Clinton administration, and he didn't give the go ahead. Yeah. There's a lot of hindsight that we could look at, but let's say it for what it is. What we don't do as an administration very well is we don't learn from history. And the fact of the matter is after Vietnam, everybody was scared to take on conflicts and things of that nature. Reagan comes along and I think he has to be halfway nuts. But Gaddafi pissed him off, and what did he do? He put some missiles right through his front door of his house. We stopped hearing about Gaddafi after that. Sometimes military strength and power needs to be shown and not discussed, and it doesn't need to be we don't need to have a bunch of people sitting in Washington involved in it. That's what we have generals for. That's what we've groomed them for. And right now, like I said, I think we've turned a corner, at least with this administration, and they have given the power back to the military. The military now seems to be able to do what they need to do without much influence from armchair quarterbacks, a bunch of old men and women sitting, on their fat asses in Washington. So I think we've turned a corner, and now I think the public has got to realize that we're not going to be this administration that bows down to the Saudi Arabias or the Irans or or Russia or North Korea or any of those countries. It's now, hey, we're back and we're going to be better than ever. We can fight these wars with our technology. It doesn't take the vast armies of World War II or Korean War or Vietnam to make these things happen. I honestly think that little fat boy up in North Korea right now, I think it's going to be a foregone conclusion that we're going to have some sort of a conflict with him. I don't see us being able to turn him around. I don't see Korea as having the power China having the power or the strength or the ability to turn him around. I think that these little skirmishes, like you said, even firing over Japan, I think that something's going to happen. That's my opinion.
Yeah, I really think so too myself. I was looking up another article here. Did you do the group training in South Korea when you were there, where every force joins together?
Yeah.
It was called Gold Star for me.
Yeah, I think that's what it was still for me at that time.
There's an interesting piece for South Korea. Back in the 70s and 80s, North Koreans used to keep on their person a map that tells them everywhere to go in case of a nuclear strike, the radiation bunkers.
Yep.
At present day, they're saying only 10% even know where to go because they're so used to the battle, we're going to commit war from North Korea, that they've become passive about it. None of them know what to do. None of them are saving up food or water. But my statement I got from Japan is that 95% of all residents of Japan have in their house a map of where to go in case of a nuclear strike. They carry it on their person at all times in case they're out and about, and they have enough food and water to survive in 3 days. Now, this is Japan, but South Korea does not react this way.
Here's what's happened in South Korea as far as I can see. They've become a bit complacent.
Yes.
While I was there, I don't know if they still do it anymore. We used to have monthly alerts. Sirens would go off, and quote unquote, the public was supposed to do their thing. And when the sirens went off on the bases, then what we were supposed to do is report to our units. I was stationed with an infantry unit, but it was turned into a de facto air assault battalion. We pretty much moved by Black Hawk everywhere we went. We reported and we were ready to go, and we were complacent as well. I mean, this was, something that happened every month, and I know it was done to protect the people, ready the troops, things of that nature. I mean, the Republic of Korea soldiers, they took part in these monthly drills. I think over time, though, because these drills kept happening, the civilians, they no longer even bothered to listen. They were just like, it's a drill. But what I think may turn a little bit, if any good comes from the missile going over Japan, and I shared this article on Facebook, is that one of the mechanized battalions of the Army last night during this 10-day training, they took a wrong turn, and they went into a town, city, or whatever, and scared the bejesus out of everyone because they obviously knew about the missile, and all of a sudden the U.S. Army shows up with their Bradleys, and they're rolling down the streets. So it's not funny that happened to the people of South Korea, but at the same time, I think that may instill some realism back in, hey, you know what? We're not hearing about the North Koreans, being pissed off and saying, hey, we're going to attack. And they're no longer just taking things lightly. That it's starting to become a bit of awareness for them.
Yeah, hopefully it's an eye opener.
Yeah,
to get them back on their tracks. But what do you think would be end game for the North Korea situation? My thoughts would be a SEAL team going through and just popping him off in the head. I'm sure their citizens would like to eat again and be free.
Let's dissect that for a moment. Their citizens, from the time that they are born, are indoctrinated into believing a false reality.
No, yeah, they think he's God.
Correct.
His dad was God.
Correct. So, from what I've been reading, and I think it's I can't remember the name of the website right off the top of my head. DMZ Korea or .org, or I'll have to get back to you, but they do a lot of they've done a lot of research and a lot of history telling on this website. And these kids, when they're young enough to start learning to write, they learn how to write the leaders' names before their own. That's important, and that's where the brainwashing process begins. So I don't know, other than the elderly, the ones in the concentration camps that they have, who is going to turn on this person when the balloon goes up. Flashback to World War II, because it's an easy time to discuss. When Germany started doing all their bullshit, yes, there were people that were in the German army, but then you had people in the SS and so on and so forth. But the people that were in the German army and the civilians didn't necessarily agree with Hitler. Hitler came along at a time in their lives and said, okay, this is what Germany stands for, and this is what we're going to do. On the flip side of the coin, to go back to North Korea, you've been, ever since you were a kid, a baby, been told things that are beat into your head, and now you believe it. And like you said, they do believe that Fat Boy up there is a god. He makes it rain. He makes it snow. People have a hard time believing this, but that's what these people have been brainwashed to believe. So,
dead father supposedly makes the sun still go up and down.
Correct. And so what we have is that we have a situation that's been allowed to go on for so long. You got to figure, since the 50s, I mean, we're still technically at war, but this has been going on since the 1950s, and that they've had a lot of time. They've had generations to spend the time indoctrinating these people. So, a lot of people think that, oh, well, why doesn't someone just turn on them? Because the second that anyone even has the thought or even slips to mention it, they're killed. That's it. They're killed. They're not even sent to a camp. They're just killed.
It's weird how somebody will get the idea, think they're getting somebody they can trust to go along with the idea, and they end up snitching, and the person's in the what they call the labor camps until further notice.
Correct. And so going on, if we had more resistance, I would think that the CIA or any of the other secret groups of our UN countries, hell, even China, I would have thought that they would have been able to infiltrate and be able to get someone to at least report where he's physically at and allow us to do whatever we needed to do. Yeah. We're not having that success. No one's having that success. What we have to turn to is what we have. So, as you're saying about a SEAL team, we have in place. I've read many accounts from this from many different sources. We have trained with South Korea with our special forces. I don't know who that involves. I don't know whether it's SEALs. I don't know whether it's Delta. I don't know who it is. We have a plan in place to go in and do as you're suggesting and take him out. But that plan isn't going to be put into place unless we're at the beginning of a full-scale conflict. The problem is going in as a SEAL team, or any team for that matter, is that number one, it's going to be a suicide mission. because of this indoctrinations that we're speaking of. Okay, because of these indoctrinations that we're speaking of, any team that goes in there and even successfully, if they make it to where he's at, there's no getting him out of there. I mean, that's the problem. Them going in there and making these, taking these out, this person out, or even some of his top generals, or so on and so forth. It's like I said, it's not going to work. As far as having longevity of these people or this team, people. The one comment I hear is, people always say, well, why can't we get someone in there, get a good old sniper from a couple miles out, go ahead, take them out. Same thing will happen. There will be no escaping that. So what's left for us? We have a conventional slash. So we have a conventional war. There's a couple of things that need to take place. Number one, we have to take out the nuclear facility. We take out the nuclear facility. We take out most of their electrical grid. That has to be top priority, and has to be done.
Well, I think. Did you read an article last night that they're, even though all this is going on, they're starting work on their second nuclear facility now?
Yeah, I have read that, and that statement is exactly why I think it's a foregone conclusion as to the outcome of all of this is that we're going to have some sort of a conflict with them.
Yeah, because I think he's just going to keep building them, because they're even saying the first one isn't even for energy; it's for refining nuclear missiles.
Right. That's why I think that the foregone conclusion is, number one, in the attack, the first thing that has to happen is we have to take out these nuclear facilities. We must do that. We have to take out what little infrastructure. Now, people that aren't well versed on North Korea, if you take a picture of that country at nighttime from a satellite, that country is basically dark. There is no electricity at night except for around their capital and a couple other places, one of the places being around their nuclear facilities. So you have to take out the infrastructure first, and with that dies the communications and so on and so forth. Will this be the first conflict, war, whatever you want to put it, that you see a nuclear device used as an EMP device? Will we detonate a nuclear device above their ground and take out all of their electronics? That's a real possibility. You have to do that. You must disable them. At the same time, like I mentioned earlier, is you must take out all of those artillery and missiles. And it's going to be difficult because they're going to get the first shots off.
Yeah, that's going to be real difficult.
Right, but this has to be a huge simultaneous effort. I mean, it's not like you're going to say, let's fly in there and bomb the reactor and see what happens. So we're going to see this played out. This isn't going to be in Iraq. This isn't going to be in Afghanistan. This isn't going to be a Syria. This is going to be a full-scale waged war where we use every ounce of our technology to be able to disable them.
Yeah. And there's going to be a million people over here in the United States complaining about this, any single casualty that wasn't related to their government. Casualties of war. I mean, it always happens, but there's going to be someone. And with the present state of the United States, it's going to lead to protests, riots, and everything else under the sun. Sad to say, but that's what's going to happen.
It is, but we are not going to do any of this without South Korea, their president, their Secretary of Defense, so on and so forth. Without
the president still wants to
up.
Put things up onto a tabletop discussion. He still wants to talk. He's I want to say a high pacifist. He doesn't even want war on the table or any type of battle at all.
Yep. And that's what the people across the world that end up protesting anything have to be aware of, is that every avenue is being taken to calm this thing down.
Breaking news. This did happen earlier today. 6 or so. UN Council meeting on North Korea with Japan, the ambassador from Japan.
Okay.
It's a closed door meeting, so there's no information on it. But the last statement made was that something has to be done, even if it considers stricter sanctions. I don't know how stricter we can get on those people.
Well, we just took a third of their economy away. What do you do now? Now this is where as a human being, you have to sit there and say, okay, we want to disable the government, we want to cripple them, we want to take away their money. Then but at the same token, is you have innocent people in North Korea. You have citizens that you're also hurting by this. Now, the argument could be made that we're not hurting them any more than their own government is. It's not like they're receiving this trade money and saying, "Hey, people, let's here's money, here's food, here's water, here's education." They're hindering their own people. And this is why I think that we've reached a point where we could take away 100% of their domestic trade and leave them with $0. We could set up a blockade, a naval blockade, and stop every single ship coming and going from North Korea. We could do this. The problem is it's not going to change anything.
No, it's not.
But, Fat Boy's still going to have his food. Fat Boy's still going to have his luxury items. It's going to be. It's still going to be the same fucking mess that you have right now. And that's why I think it's a foregone conclusion that we or South Korea, our allies, somebody, I don't care if it's Russia, I don't care if it's China, I don't care who the hell it is, somebody needs to make a strike and make a regime change. I don't care if they still want to live like idiots. But the fact is, this guy is hurting his own people.
Yeah. Their role is the military before they feed civilians.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it is. But if you watch the pictures, now you have to remember the pictures that come out of North Korea are what North Korea wants to come out. So number one, any picture you see, any video you see, you have to remember that there's things that are staged, things that are photoshopped, things that are edited. But with that being said, even when you see their military on their grand parades marching and things like that, they're all like anorexic. I mean, that's what they look like. They're not even feeding. Unless you're a general, a high-ranking official in what they call a military. The fact is that they don't even take care of their own people. They really don't take care of their soldiers. They give them enough to keep going, and that's it.
Yeah, that's about it.
The exception is they have their own version. I don't know what they want to call the special forces, whatever the hell they want to call it. That's an exception to that rule, because they see themselves and they see them as being very important. The whole thing is nonsense. I mean, all of this is nonsense when it comes down to it, because they have vehicles from the 50s and 60s. Their technology's still that old. They don't have the internet per se. They have it blocked off. They only have a North Korean intranet with a few half-assed websites that look like they were designed in the 90s. They can't give power to their people. They can't give clean water to the people. Right now, it's like I said, it's almost turned into a humanitarian mission. I mean, how long do you let these people suffer? Now, one thing that I'd like to make aware of, if you're caught in North Korea doing something illegal or something against the government, they send you to these camps, and not only do they send you, but they send multiple generations of yours to these camps as well. So if I'm there, they're gonna send me there, my wife, my kids, my parents, my grandparents, and maybe even the next generation of kids from my kids.
When you think about that, and like this regime's been doing this for, I'll give it 50 years. How much inbreeding is there?
Oh, I supposedly old fat boy was sent to Switzerland or someone, I don't know, somewhere for his education. But if he isn't inbred, then I'll just eat my cyanide capsule right now. I mean, because this dude, I mean, he's nuts. I mean, we've had some leaders that were nuts. Hussein was nuts, but killing his own people and gassing his own people, and I forget what jackass is the president of Syria right now, but he gassed his own people and he's fighting his own people, in the civil war. Gaddafi was nuts, but none of them compare to this family that's in control in North Korea. It's absolutely the worst. Like I said, I just think it's a foregone conclusion that something's going to happen there, whether we're directly or indirectly involved. We're going to be part of it at some point. We have to cripple him. We have to free the people.
All he is pretty much a kid that got off the short bus, was made in charge of a country, and nobody tells him no.
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, and then if we want to use your earlier segue, Syria, you brought Syria up. Yeah. We have issues all over the Middle East right now and North Africa, with ISIS and Al Qaeda and any other terrorist organization. And granted, from all things that we've read, which we can't always trust what the media tells us, or sometimes, and even to give the media credit, sometimes they're being leaked, quote unquote, information that our government wants leaked too. So sometimes they're the recipients of bad information as well. But by all accounts, we're winning the war on ISIS. Russia is helping with that. Whether people want to believe it or not, they are. Yes, have they at times taken advantage of that and went after some of the troops supported by the U.S.? Yes, and in turn, we've shot down those bombers and things like that. Russia doesn't want ISIS any more than we do. I mean, they've had terrorist attacks there for years as well. So, our involvement in Syria, I get it. We want to get ISIS out of there, but it looks like we're going to be entrenched there for a long time, and it doesn't seem worth it in the grand scheme of things.
Because that's a step beyond warfare. That is guerrilla warfare with that situation. Yeah. That's where front line isn't determined. The enemy isn't even determined by uniform or anything. That's a hard battle situation that nobody wants to get into. Yeah,
and the, like you said, the guerrillas that are being backed by us and being supported by some limited troops and things of that nature, they've been doing a good job. I give them credit, because that has to be the most difficult thing in the world. I mean, in wars prior to this, or in conflicts prior, you could tell your enemy by the look of their soldier or the color of their skin, or and that's not racist. I mean, the fact of the matter, you could just tell, so you could see who your enemy was. And that leads me into Afghanistan. Look, no matter what we do there, it's an unwinnable war. I mean, Russia proved it. I mean, Russia fought, and eventually they had to stop. Now, we can't leave Afghanistan because it's something we started, because we proved that in Iraq.
Yeah. You can't leave something half started and not finish it, because all it does is create a vacuum for a more powerful enemy.
Correct.
Reorganized. we leave gear behind. That happens in every war. That gear becomes theirs. We can't leave it half-assed.
Yeah, and that's unfortunate. So, I mean, if we want to go back in time, Saddam Hussein was a bad guy. He killed many of his own people. He did have chemical weapons, though we didn't find them when we went in. When the Bush administration sent people in. It took years and years and years to find them. They found them in the desert buried. They found them in Syria, so on and so forth. I mean, the weapons were there. It's just they had time to prep. This has been the problem with what's happening. We went in as a country, or the UN. In this case, it was the UN. We went in and we start taking out the leadership. Even though these are bad guys, we created bigger issues by taking these bad guys out, because nobody would go into Iraq prior to this because Hussein was nuts. I mean, that's all there is to it. Saddam was just nuts. He wasn't as nuts as Fat Boy, but he was nuts nonetheless. So that actually gave some stabilization to the region. So we go in there and we remove Hussein. We hand him over to the authorities over there, and the authorities over there hang his ass. And now they have a leaderless country. Granted, they said, "Oh, okay, well, we have a new president," and so on and so forth. Bullshit. It didn't happen.
Yeah, weren't they supposed to write up a constitution?
Yeah, they were.
And that became toilet paper.
Correct. They supposedly did all of this. So then Obama comes in, public opinion saying, hey, let's get out. So Obama makes the mistake and he pulls everyone out. Fallujah falls to the terrorists, so on and so forth. And it's all history at this point. So now we have to turn around because of the terrorist stronghold there, and because they're supposedly our number one enemy. We have to go back in there now and retake all the ground that we lost. And so now hopefully we learned a lesson. We are going to have a permanent base in Iraq for quite some time to keep the peace, just like we had to do in West Germany at the time. Keep the peace from East Germany. We have it in South Korea, so on and so forth. You have to leave a permanent base there to make sure you keep the bad guys at bay. So, same thing happened in Syria. We go in there, we take out Gaddafi. Well, we didn't directly do it, but, we had our hands in that. So, and look what happens to Syria. It becomes a vacuum for terrorists, and, now we got that asshole turning on his people, using those chemical weapons from Iraq on his own people. So it's a mess. And there's no good answer. And unfortunately, right now, there's no good exit strategy. There's nothing that could possibly happen in any of these countries, whether in Middle East or North Africa, Africa in general, because we're all over there, that's going to put an end to this. Even Saudi Arabia, being the High Council, and supposedly everyone's kind of working with them, they don't even have the ability to make this all end, because a lot of that Saudi money is going to finance terrorism.
Well, hopefully, if it all comes to a final boil over, North Korea becomes part of South Korea, and Korea itself, we'll call that one nation Korea, works with China, because I need more toys at a real good price, and I know Koreans will bootleg anything, so I'm looking for some more DVDs.
Well, you know what? I want to bring this up too, because this is not widely known about North Korea. Okay. And this is where China is getting to go around some of the UN sanctions. Because North Korean labor is so cheap, North Korea, number one, and this is widely known, they send out slave labor to other countries. And what they do is they make them work for Russia. They make them work in the Middle Eastern countries. In Iran, so on and so forth. They make them work. And what those people that work get to keep a minimal amount, and the rest has to come back to the country. That's widely known. But what isn't widely known is that China, I'm trying to be very diplomatic about this. Their made in China label isn't necessarily made in China. There are some clothing manufacturers, shoe manufacturers, things of that nature that subcontract out to North Korea, have them make the products in North Korea, send it to China where that made in China label's put on, and guess what? It gets to come into your stores. So you may think that there's some rhetoric involved of people saying, Walmart supports China, and people on the extreme right, they're fanaticals, and they say, oh, hey, don't shop at Walmart, they support the Chinese and things like that. There is a little bit of truth to that, in saying that you're supporting a terrorist North Korean nation by taking some of these products off the shelves and by purchasing them. It happens, and you don't have to go very far to dig. You use the old Googleizer and start actually taking the time to learn. You'll see these things. It's there. It's happening.
I can verify it because my nameless place that I work at, my stuff says made in America, but all I did was put it together. Right. Nothing came from me, or the United States, I should say.
Absolutely. I mean, there's ways to get around all of those labels and all those rules. I just wish people would take the time and educate themselves a little better. Not all people, but some people are just willing to overlook your trail. I mean, the same people that take down an actor, an actress, a politician for them owning a company that uses quote unquote slave labor from India or Africa or somewhere, they'll turn around and buy a Chinese made product, and you're helping North Korea by doing it.
So they'll take down somebody just because it has some kind of interest for them to climb on their back to go higher up.
Correct.
No, I got the Emmy this year because I walked all over you. But they'll turn around and put the shirt on their back from China. Or what was the other one? The one the flags were all coming from? I think it was 2 years ago this happened. Yugoslavia?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it was one of those.
All the American flags was coming from overseas. I'm like, why can't we get an American flag made in America?
Correct. Yeah. Take the time to look at the labels. You don't even have to look at the labels anymore. You don't have to go to a store anymore.
No.
Jump on Amazon. Jump on Google. Type in American-made flags. You'll get a ton of companies that are made there. Just do a 2-second research, and then when you want to buy that flag or you want to buy that item, make the purchase from them.
Yeah. Well, just a caveat: if it wasn't for Amazon, we wouldn't be here right now in this podcast.
No, I agree. I'm not saying not to shop at Amazon. I'm not saying
smart in their products.
Correct. I mean, I purchase 90% of my goods from there. Why not? I can save money. People will turn around and say, well, you're supposed to support the stores and this and that. Well, I have a finite income. I don't have an unlimited income. I'm not. I
gotta look for the cheapest way to survive.
Yeah, I'm not, in any class that or social class that says, hey, you can go ahead and do whatever you want to do and not have to worry about that checkbook. I do, but I also take the time to look at who the seller is.
Well, just a little segue.
Yep.
If you watch the YouTube video that I just put up, Swen Products from West Fargo, North Dakota. It was a gift from my mother. It is made in America. They proudly put it on their flyer they got here. I looked up the company. It is out of America. So nice. There's one for you.
Yep. There you go. See, it took you 2 seconds to find that out.
Yeah, because on the Amazon site for its product, it even when you look at the the big picture and identification of it, real big in the corner, made in the United States and where they were from.
There you go. And granted, I mean, we're all, we're all guilty. Sometimes you get on there, you say, hey, you know what? I need to get the cheapest item, or I need to buy, at the cheapest price. And you go in there, you click, you order, and you don't think about, where that money trail leads to. Granted, and I'm not saying that, but I'm saying on the purchases that you're taking the time. If you're taking the time to look on Amazon and you're hitting that compare button and you're starting to compare 4 or 5 different products, take that extra 2 seconds. Look at where it leads to.
Yeah, because I got Batman Sports Cup that I had to have.
Right.
But now that we're talking about it, I looked at the bottom. It says made in China, so I'm just as guilty. But I looked for the cheapest one. My income says I had to. Right.
Yeah, and it's understandable. I mean, there's folks that have to do it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I got this world. I'm a one income male with a mortgage.
Yep.
So I definitely have to.
Right, and so I mean, it has to happen.
Yeah. We've been on North Korea now for an hour. Okay, our second topic was going to be statues. Where was that? Charlottesville that had happened, where the guys, kids, idiots, ripped down the statue with a tow rope.
Yeah, it was during the Charlottesville, and I'm going to call them what they were. They were riots.
Yeah. All
of these groups, the Nazi groups, the KKK, the Antifa, and to some extent, Black Lives Matter. Not the true organizers of Black Lives Matter. I get where they're at, and I get what they're saying, and I understand what they're saying. I get it. But so many people have branched off, and they claim to be representatives of that. They all need to be labeled as hate groups. They all need to be labeled as terrorist groups. As far as I'm concerned, there's no room for that in today's society, and that's why I mentioned before. I feel like that even though I wasn't alive during this time, from a historical standpoint, I feel like we're living in the 60s again.
Yeah.
As we're separated, we're separated, and in this country, and it takes a hurricane to put a damper on that. And you see people of all races, creeds, colors, religions, so on and so forth. They're coming together down there in Houston, and they're doing what Americans do best. They're helping one another.
Yeah. But when something like that isn't happening, now this is how bad society is. It's happening a state away. The other state's still fighting over this stuff instead of worrying about, hey, there's Texans down there that need our help. We as a human race find any reason to separate each other. Race, creed, color, sex, religion choice, sexual choice. We could go as far as hair color, nose shape, height. We'll find any reason to discriminate against each other. There's no reason to be that way. That's not the way the world's meant to be. We can live together no matter what.
With the exception of a certain group of terrorists that think that they're using a religion, their quote unquote view of the religion.
If they were cool, we could
be hurting people.
Yeah, but if they were cool, we could live in peace. Cool as in a way as in not discriminating against other people.
Look, the same people that are saying that they have a right or support these terrorist organizations, are the same people that are backing the gay pride movements and things like that. Meanwhile, these terrorists are taking every gay person in Syria that they can find and taking them to the roof of the highest building, and they're tossing them off the building because that's not permitted in their religion.
Yeah, it's not permitted.
The double standards the double standards are what's truly killing us. I don't understand how someone can say, well, they're free to do what they want, but yet at the same time they're supporting another group, and their group A that's free to do whatever they want is hurting these other groups that they're supporting. And I just picked on the gay pride because it was the first thing that came to my mind. And because we have proof and we have evidence, we have video evidence. They take videos of this stuff.
Yeah. They recorded the show the others.
Yeah. So now I just don't get it. I don't understand. What we need in this country is to get back to the basics. We need to get back is realize that we're Americans. There is no race. There's a human race.
Yeah.
We need to get back thinking that we like the lifestyle that we lead. Just for living that lifestyle, these terrorists want to kill you. They don't care whether you're Democrat, Republican. They don't care whether you're black, white, orange, yellow, green. They don't care. If you do not live by their lifestyles or their standards, they want to kill you. And if given the chance, they will kill you.
Yeah, they will.
So we kind of got off topic a little bit, but as the statues. As far as the statues go, my personal opinion is I don't care about a statue. History has already been made. History has already been written. A statue is not going to erase history. If it wasn't for history, we wouldn't be who we are today. All the good, all the bad, all of that combined, we've learned from those experiences, and over time, we bettered ourselves because of it. You take a statue of a Confederate general, soldiers, you take statues of Martin Luther King, you take statues of Rosa Parks, you take statues, I don't care, of Richard Nixon, I don't care. Take a statue of Bill Clinton, Ronald Reagan, tear them down. For all I care, I don't care. I really don't. As far as the physical statues are concerned, yeah. The statue is just a symbol. It's just there. It's something, right or wrong, that people were proud of their heritage. And people had put up these statues in remembrance of that. Now, that's my personal opinion. If we want to take it one step further, tearing down a statue is probably the worst thing that anybody can do, no matter what statue you're tearing down, because that's saying that someone or some group of people do not have the right to have freedom of speech or freedom of expression or the freedoms to do so. Yeah. I don't care if you have I really don't care if you put up a statue. It makes no difference to me. Quite frankly, I go through an area, I see a statue, unless I'm there for tourist purposes or trying to learn history, it doesn't matter to me. I don't even look at these statues half the time. I know most people.
Architecture. That's all it seems to me. I mean, unless, like you said, you're there to learn something. It's just architecture, like the house next door. Oh, look at that design. That's neat. Drive on by.
I have to pick on the Southern folks. I get why they do it. They do it as some people do it to put it up to say, hey, the South, remember, the South doesn't necessarily agree with the North. Some people put it up there. They put these statues up because they said, okay, we don't want to ever forget history's lessons, and this is an in-your-face reminder. We don't want to have slavery. We don't want to make those mistakes again. There's arguments from all different sides and angles, but who cares? Put up the statues. I don't care. Put up monuments, so on and so forth. when it comes down to it, as a veteran, there's only certain things that I care about as far as visual things or monuments, statues, buildings, and that happens to be the American flag. I would die for it. The White House, the monuments in D.C. There's other monuments and landmarks that told the story of our nation's building. Those are things that I personally would protect. I would receive a call to arms, and I would go to protect it. All these other statues, no matter who they are, what they represent, I think it's a bunch of bullshit. If they leave them up, it doesn't matter. There's nobody here today that was.
Nobody here fought on either side. Nobody here was a slave within those times.
Correct.
Why can't we just look at it, learn from it, and move on?
Correct. Thank you for thank you for doing that. I mean, look to Europe. There are statues everywhere. Look to Asia. There are statues everywhere, and their history is much longer than ours. Their statues, monuments, buildings, they aren't this new world PC. Some of them represent some really terrible shit, and they're a blatant in-your-face reminder. But they choose to leave them up, and they choose to, like you said, they educate people. We're not going back to the time of the Crusades. We're not going back to the times of the Roman Empire and trying to take over the world, and so on and so forth. Auschwitz, the concentration camp, is still there. You don't see the Jewish people saying, hey, let's take this down because this reminds us of bad shit. No, they're saying, hey, keep this up. We want to make sure this never happens again.
Yeah, and that's why it is still up. And many Jews still tour it, along with Germans and anybody else that comes to visit. They do want it up because they want a reminder of this is what happened to us. Please never do this again. Never let anyone do this again to anyone else of any race or religion.
Correct. And it just kills me that groups of people think that this is going to change things. They can tear down all these statues. They can rename parks, buildings, blah, 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 whatever you want to do. The fact of the matter is there are still racists there. Racism never has gone away. I doubt we'll ever see it go away. But there's always going to be those groups of people that think that, hey, you know what? Just because you're white, you have white privilege, you owe us something. Bullshit. Guess what? My family lineage is traceable back to Europe, and guess what? I did not have an ancestor in this country before 1900. So guess what? I'm not responsible for any of that. Okay? And if you want to push it, the Irish blood in me, they were actual slaves.
Yes, they were.
And they so if anything, I should be up in arms because of that. No, bullshit. It's history. It's what was done at the time. It was found out to be bad, and it got changed. Move on. It's the same way with all this. Yes, it was bad. It was terrible what happened in the early parts of our country. But because it was so terrible, people saw that. People fought and died to make sure that ended. It's history, and let's move on.
So every time you pass a railroad track, you get pissed off and look at it and go, you cocksucker.
Yeah, absolutely.
You can start your own march, rip up the tracks.
Yep. And likewise, you know what? All races, beyond the human race, if you want to look at the color of people's skin or where they're from demographically or historically, they're all guilty of all of this. Who the hell do you think sold the slaves in Africa? Black people. Yeah. They sold them. They made money off their own people. There were slaves in Africa of their own people to do the agricultural and do those sorts of things there. it happens. So we don't look into history without looking into all of the history. You can't just sit there and pick on parts of history and say, okay, well, today I'm going to go ahead and say that you have white privilege and you shouldn't be on this podcast talking about this because you know nothing. Bullshit. Okay, we all have some sort of history in our lineage that's going to point to good and bad.
Yeah.
Just, we are, look at America as we were the scums of the earth. We left and we fought against these countries that all had a say in what was going on within North America at the time. And we were horrible people. The people that came here, the pilgrims, so on and so forth, they finally said, we're not going to answer to paying these tea taxes from England and so on and so forth. The roots of this country are still valid today. We came together. We didn't care whether you, at the time, whether you were French or whether you were English or whether you were Spanish or whatever the hell you were, or what color you were, or which religion you were. We all came together and fought against the tyranny of these other countries trying to tell us what to do over here.
Yeah, because we came here to get our freedom, for freedom of choice, religion. We wanted out of a different government type role. And the promise was given to us here that there will be a new government for the people, by the people. There are opportunities to work, to build yourself a future.
And that some of this downfall is when we took away a lot of the manufacturing type jobs from our own country because it was convenient, it was cheaper to produce overseas and bring back into our country. That was truly one of the downfalls of modern society, because people during those times, they worked hard, they worked for whatever wage they could get. Now we have people that work for Disney, for example. They've gone to their union, and said $10 enough isn't a good enough starting wage. Well, if you're so pissed off about your starting wage, educate yourself, get a job that you can actually make the kind of money you want to make. I mean, to sit in a parking booth and collect money all day, collect $30 a day to park at a Disney park, and have your breaks and go home, well, of course you're only going to make $10 an hour.
Yeah. Well, that's just like the McDonald's fight. They won $15 an hour for minimum wage. How is that going to steamroll to affect you? Your $15 isn't going to amount to anything by the time the economy rolls down because of your increase.
Correct. In the areas that have implemented this, I mean, look, California right now, as far as I'm concerned, is a horrible place to live. I mean, they think they're on the forefront of thoughts and ideas, but they're just constantly in debt and killing themselves. Seattle's another city, but Seattle, they've come to realize that, hey, when we go into this $15 an hour, that has snowballed out to the public. So now everything's increased. No matter what you touch there, now the increases have been felt, and they're starting to realize, oh shit, this wasn't such a great idea.
Yeah.
Because the cost of living there now is through the roof. You have to think about things on a greater perspective than, oh, I'm just going to make people happy. Businesses are going out of business. People that had full-time workers have now got around it and said, oh shit, okay, now I'm only going to have part-time workers. And, those people that were crying for $15 an hour jobs are now part-time, and they're only working 20, 30 hours a week.
Yeah, so they're still not getting ahead.
Yep. So, but we got away from the statues.
Yeah, we did that again.
Yeah, of course. It just seems, as us grumpy guys sit here and we get into one topic, it snowballs. But
It snowballs big time. There's no stopping it because I'll find another topic within that topic to bitch about, and then another topic within that one.
and that's what's good, that we have a platform and forum we could do it.
Yeah.
And look, I'll be the first to admit our thoughts and opinions probably won't sit well with everybody, but you know what, it's the podcast, and
Yeah.
you choose to listen or choose not to.
Yeah, the stance on this podcast is we're not going to throw our opinion down anybody's throat. But if you want to converse about it on your opinion, you're more than welcome to. But when you're going to force it down my throat, it ain't happening. But I'm welcome to talk, and that's what the podcast was open for. We have all the contact spaces on there. I'll add them at the end of this, Facebook, the whole 9 yards, if you want to converse about this. And if you're a good converser, you may be able to join in like Jason just did.
Yeah. And, hopefully, we can, continue to do this monthly and, have, some good open dialogue. I'm a creature of history, and I like learning, and I love hearing other people's opinions, as long as it isn't just some off the wall flying, hey, go to hell, fuckface, you're stupid.
Yeah.
I'm not going to respond to that. I'm not.
None of that here.
But if you wanna have an open dialogue and you want to have a discussion, I'm more than happy to change my thoughts. I am not right. Many of the times you can ask my family. I'm personally not a person that's going to turn and say, well, I'm going to hide from this person because they made a valid point. You make a valid point, I'll admit I'm wrong, I'll learn from it, and I'll move on.
Yeah. And present your information with something to back it up too, not because I heard or this or that. That's why I try to quote the websites where I get my information from as much as possible so someone else can look it up with me. And it might be sad because right now we don't know who to trust in the information age, but I try to check my resources too. If the same story's coming up 3 different places and it's all about the same, I'll go with it. Right. But if somebody has an oddball story, that ain't flying until I find a second person that says it too.
Right. It's so easy to get, and like I said, the internet, while I love it, I am employed because of it. Things of that nature. It's also been the downfall. Everybody can have an opinion. It doesn't matter who you are. You can have an opinion, and you can spout off anything you want, and there are people out there that will believe anything that is written because it's on the internet, so it must be true. Yeah. And that's where a lot of the problem is. A lot of people that protest have incorrect facts backing them.
Yeah, a lot of people with the let's say my thought is that I'm the only one that's right. So no, that couldn't be right. That's just me. Hold on. That only people from Irwin, Pennsylvania, are the only ones that are right. So where I look up my information is from other people from Irwin. It's keeping that closed-minded thought, not looking outside the box for the information. Like Black Lives Matter, they only look at the other Black Lives Matter people for the information they're getting. Same with the KKK, the Nazi group, Antifa. Antifa's strict with staying with only their people for information.
Right, and that's where I think there's an issue with our politicians. It all comes. Look, if I don't think that this is possible. I don't think it's legal, but the two-party system that we have in the government, granted, we do have an opening for independence, but there, the two-party system has done more harm at this day and age to the American people than it has in the past. In the past, it was needed. It was that time, but as we move forward, just like everyone says that we have to be open and in order to progress, they're not looking at their own politicians and saying that, wait a second, this is something we've done for 200 years. They're not progressing because they're only allowing for the most part, two parties. You know, and then what's happening is if the Republican Party says that you should be doing this, then the Republican people think that. Likewise, the Democrat people, you should be doing this, and the Democrat people think that, and so they're creating a divide.
Yeah.
You know, I really think I really think that needs to go away. If in my perfect world right now, I don't think the president should be affiliated with a party. I think that if 50 people all have the money to campaign and 50 people want to be president, let them on the ticket. I don't care that we have people that run along a Republican or Democratic line, but this allows people to come in and campaign and say, hey, this is what I stand for. This is what I believe in. This is why you should vote for me. And just lay it all on the line. Don't tell me that you're going to follow the Republicans. Don't tell me you're going to follow the Democrats. Tell me what you're going to do for this country. Go campaign. Forget these stupid debates are so fake anymore. You need to get back to the roots. Get on a train, travel from town to town, get on a bus. I don't care. Get on a plane. If you have the money to campaign, go out there and be the best person you are. Don't let some organization tell you who you should be voting for.
Yeah, because didn't it used to be that you would go? Well, this is going back eons. You would go out, and this is what I'm fighting for, and then it was up to the Republican Party and the Democratic Party to pick who they wanted from that. It wasn't set your alignment first.
Correct.
So why don't we get back to those days?
Yeah, that would be a good turn, but that's still I'm not saying that, you know, I wouldn't support a party member, but what I think this would allow, it would allow the public to actually choose someone who they felt was going to be a good representation for them.
Yeah.
I don't care if you're male, female. I don't care of your race. I don't care of your gender that you associate with. I don't care about any of that. I strongly care about what you're going to do for me in this country.
Yeah.
You know,
well, I've taken it since probably since it first came out. You remember South Park when they were doing the voting for the school mascot?
Yep.
Your choice is between a douchebag and a shit sandwich. Which one you,
right.
which one you getting stuck with? And you try to find the lesser of two evils. And are you always right?
Yeah, and finding, and that exactly proves my point. Why do I have to choose the lesser of two evils?
Yeah.
Why should any legal American that has the right to vote have to choose that way?
Yeah. Why don't we have better options?
Correct.
That's what they always say about America with other objects. We have such a selection that you have a freedom of choices that suit your needs. except for when electing a president.
Yep. Absolutely. And it can even go down further than that. I mean, it's all the congressmen. It's, it's your local politicians. It's your sheriffs, people go to those voting booths now, and now they're becoming more and more electronic. You can go in there and say, hit a Republican button, or hit a Democrat button, or hit another button. And, you have to hit other to be able to go in there and vote for who you think will do a good job.
Yes. And a lot of people want in and out of there, so they Republican, Democrat, boom, out of there.
Absolutely. And this is the shit that's got us to the position we are now. People are more prone to follow and be told what to do or how to do it. And instead of saying, okay, well, this particular party person that I voted for is not doing a good job, so I'm going to go ahead and vote the other. I can't vote the other because I'm a member of this party. Bullshit. I put out a post a while ago because I was fed up and I had enough of all of this. And not to rehash the whole post, but I might find it and give you a copy that you can put out. Okay. But the fact of the matter is, I believe a couple of things. I believe there should be term limits in Congress.
Yes, very, very.
We will never see that because we're probably never going to get anyone to agree to it.
Yeah.
But I feel that people that have chosen to make Congress their life's profession, as anyone gets older, naturally, as you become more educated, as you start to listen to things, your thought processes change. And what happens naturally is you might be under a certain party in Congress, but your voting actually favors another party. So in that case, what I think should happen is you should say, hey, you know what? I'm no longer running as a Democrat. I'm going to run as a Republican and vice versa. You should change your party. Let the people decide whether they want to keep you. Also, I believe that anyone who's been in I believe anyone who's been in Congress for too long, they naturally lose touch with their constituents. They don't necessarily represent the people.
Well, here's one for you. Representative John Dingell of Michigan has been serving as a member of Congress for 57 years, 5 months, 27 days as of today.
Unbelievable. Here's what I say. There's a quick answer to a lot of this. I think that what we could do if we want to shake up society, if we want to shake up the two-party system, I think that everyone at the next election, if you have a congressperson that is in there, has been in office for, pick a number, greater than 20 years. I don't care. Pick a number, 12 years. You pick your number. If they've been in office too long, I want to see everyone vote the opposite. I want you to decimate both parties. I want everyone to just say, you know what? It's time that we had real change. It's time that we took these politicians that are getting richer. It's time to stop these backdoor meetings It's time to stop this backdoor payment that we says is illegal, but we know still happens. It's time. Enough is enough. Politicians aren't looking out for our best interest as today. So shake them up. Get them out of office. I don't care. Pick your number. Go to the polls and vote opposite. Vote independent. Vote whatever you need to. Take them out of office. Now, I granted, I know there are some Congress people in there that probably still follow their party line, and it's going to hurt, but you're not going to get these parties to change until we shake them up.
Yeah. If Congress and the Senate remain the same, and the only thing you're changing is a few of the people in there, it's still a banana split with a different cherry on top. It's still going to be the same thing.
Correct.
And the other one I was looking at, the Senate. He's been this guy, Robert C. Byrd, Democrat, West Virginia, has been serving for 51 years. So you got that on board too. And he's just the top one. There's 5, 6 more after that.
It's to me, that's unreal. I mean, look, the fact of the matter is you go serve a term in Congress. Let's say that I go serve a term in Congress. I do one term. So whatever I am, 4 years, whatever. I get elected out. Guess what? I keep all my benefits. I get a retirement. I get everything. Yeah. I don't need to work any further from, you know what I mean? I have all those good benefits. These people that think that I'm going to stay in power because I represent something and I'm going to mold and make the changes, they're not. It doesn't happen that way. I mean, just look at history. It just doesn't happen. You have people constantly voting against their own parties. You have on both sides. You have people that may have good ideas, but they're never going to go anywhere because their party tells them they're not going to. I mean, that's what I'm saying. We're so segregated there that it's trickling down to society. And segregation is normal, becoming normal in society again, and it's not to be that way. There should be no safe spaces on campus. There should be no white student union. There shouldn't be no black student union. There should be nothing, no difference between anybody because we're all the fucking same. I breathe the same air as you. I can take my blood and giving the right blood type, I can give it to you. You can give me blood. I could need an organ transplant. And guess what? It doesn't fucking matter what the color of your skin is.
No.
Okay.
This is how bad our society is. We can all be clones, look exactly alike. And let's say the blood types still differ from some abnormality, whatever, we would find out what blood types we were because we have to know that for operations and stuff. And we discriminated against each other because of that.
Yep. It is. And it's just bothering me. And here we go. We're going off again. Well,
what statue?
Jace is going the hell off of something here, but you know, a lot of countries, they implement a mandatory service for the males. Now, while I agree that that's a really touchy subject, but when I went into the U.S. Army, the very first day, within the very first half an hour, I'd say, my old mind is getting feeble here. The first thing that my drill sergeant told me, and they told everyone in our platoon, the only color we have here is green. You were all pieces of shit. You were all equally worthless. It doesn't matter. And that's where I start to think about the mandatory 2-year service or something like that, is because that environment can teach you. I mean, look, we are from white America. I can't instill upon people when we were growing up that we lived in white America.
Yeah.
So when I went in the service, it's the first time that I had true formal interaction with a group of black people, a group of Hispanic people, a group of Southern white boys, groups of Northern white boys, so on and so forth. We all came from different backgrounds, but right away, and for the first couple of weeks in the military, you realize that you're all the same. There is no difference. Yeah. You all have different backgrounds, and if you take the time to listen to other people's backgrounds, it teaches you that you know, there are some people that were upper class. There were some people that were middle class. There were some people that were lower class. Some people that lived on the fucking streets turned to the military so they didn't have to live on the streets. Yeah. We had ex-gang members. We had drug dealers. We had all of this. It didn't matter after 2 weeks. We were all willing to bleed, sweat, and die for the person to our right and left.
Yep, that's what it had to be.
The way that they teach this, that makes me wonder, what if everybody had to start off their adult life this way? What if everyone could be taught this? I would, to this day, fight with any military brother and sister out there. If I saw someone that was a Marine, someone that was Air Force, someone that was Navy, Coast Guard, we'll go ahead and throw them in there. But, you know, I'm just kidding, Coast Guard. I'm picking on you.
No, yeah, because we all did it to the Coast Guard.
Yeah. Well, you know, here's the funny thing, and a lot of people don't know this. A lot of Army vets, they'll see each other, they flip each other off. And people think, oh, they're being assholes or something. That's just the way we are. That's the camaraderie and the unity they have. You know, Marines say that once a Marine, always a Marine. There is no ex-Marine, right?
Right.
Well, you know, that's been their mantra, but a lot of veterans from the other branches are the same way.
Yeah.
If I saw a veteran in trouble and I knew that they were a veteran, there would be no doubt in my mind that I would come to their assistance. I would do it for any American, really, but I'm saying in this case, in this instance, if you are a veteran and you're in trouble or something's happening to you, I will lay myself down for you. That's just the way I feel, and I believe since the 1990 basic training of mine at Fort Jackson, South Carolina, that I would continue to do that to this day. I'm not saying everybody's good. There's bad people in all races, whatever. There's bad people out there, but the majority of people are good, and I just can't help but think that if everyone had these instilled values, we would be much better off today as a society.
Yeah, we probably would. There's no doubt about it. I had the same experience of basic training as you, but my first duty station was Camp Hovey, Korea. I arrived at midnight. I got stuffed in a room, and I knew the guy was sleeping. And a 2-man room split off for 3 people. You know, you creep around the corner, try to get your stuff by. And I'm looking at this guy under the cover, not in no weird way. But I'm like, is that all him under this cover? Because he's laying on his side. And I'm trying to be quiet. He looked at me and he's like, oh, no, no need to be quiet, man. Just do what you got to do. I understand. I'm like, oh, I'm afraid to move because this guy's huge. I got up the next morning and remember the wall lockers, the 2-drawer wall lockers?
Yep.
His shoulder went from one side to the other side. That's how broad this guy was.
Oh.
He was from San Antonio, Texas, and his name was Humberto Tambunga. He was my best friend ever in Korea. We were side by side. We were always together working on stuff. And I got a new sergeant, the squad sergeant. He decided to split us up because I wasn't hanging out with my squad. I was hanging out with him.
Oh, unbelievable.
Yeah, but he had left a month after that. I kept trying to look for him, but I never found a guy. I looked on Facebook, the Army, find your battle buddy thing. Never found him there either. But
Yeah,
we were great friends. Who else did we have? I had a guy the name of David Large that wasn't very large. He was a good friend of mine. I noticed too, like in Korea, we were a lot closer because you didn't have family nearby. But when I got to Fort Stewart, man, you had to watch your back constantly over there. Somebody always trying to climb your back, trying to get that next rank.
right.
I just did well. First, when I got to Fort Stewart after Korea, I was in temporary housing for 3 days, processing housing.
Okay.
And we got put on lockdown because a private shot a sergeant in the face because the sergeant was telling him what to do. That's things.
Look, the truth is Korea, a lot of people bitch and complain about that being a duty station, but you're absolutely correct. Korea is an unaccompanied tour, which means for the most part, unless you are in the upper ranks, whether commissioned or non-commissioned, you were sent there and you were eating a shit sandwich just like the rest of us. You had no family, no friends. And you're right. In that type of environment, going back to the original topic, in that type of environment, you constantly, even though it wasn't maybe in the front of your mind, in the back of your mind, it was always a constant threat that the whack jobs in North Korea would do something. So you were immediately brought closer together. I believe duty stations like that should exist more. You could go to Germany, live off base in an apartment, bring your wife, bring your kids, bring your grandmother for all they care. Excuse me. That situation doesn't breed the closeness and the cohesion that military units need to have. I get it. I was married during my time in the service. I get it with the family. I understand it, but look, you're a soldier. You're a Marine. You're an airman. You're a frog. I'm just gonna call the Navy guys frogs. But you know what? You do these tours without your family. It's a hardship. I get it. Your wife's pissed off. Your kids are pissed off. But you know what? You didn't go in to this marriage without talking to your spouse about what you're doing, or you met your spouse while you were in this profession. We've gotten too politically correct with these assignments, and they're doing too much. I mean, you're there to do a job, and I don't care what your job is in the military. I was a medic. Okay, my business was saving lives, but first and foremost, I was there as a soldier. I was there to fight and combat the enemy. It wasn't until someone dropped that I would switch gears.
Yeah.
So I believe the state of the military right now is that they've lost a lot of that. Yes, okay, you're stationed in Syria, you're stationed in Iraq, Afghanistan, those obviously unaccompanied tours, so on and so forth, and there's lots of posts with it, but these bigger posts, that's when you start having the issues. You brought it up. You had a private shoot a sergeant because the sergeant was within their rights to tell that private what the hell to do.
Yeah.
But that's a part of growing in the military. You start out as shit with nothing. You get your bar and rocker, then to get it colored in, and you know, as you're going along, you earn that right to tell or not to, tell's a bad word, but to guide the soldiers beneath you, yeah, and have them perform certain tasks because you've earned it. You've learned the system. You've earned it. That's when you start to realize that, hey, I can do this as a living or a career. I'm good at this. Or you can realize that you're shit at it and you bail from it.
Yeah.
So, all right, I'm off my high horse. I'm off the topic.
Yeah. Well, we might end it there because my butt's killing me, and as a grumpy old guy, it's getting sweaty.
Yeah, that's cool. We can save whatever for the next round.
Okay. Yeah. Cool. Yeah, 2 is enough. We got 2 hours under our belt. I think we're good to go for this month.
Sounds good.
All righty, Jason. Thank you for joining me, and we'll be talking to you soon.
All right. Take it easy.
Later.